Let's bring the war to a modern conversation. We have this from Politico. Quote, "We see the storm coming. U.S. struggles to contain a deepening global food crisis. Biden officials are scrambling to limit the damage from fast-spreading food shortages sparked by Russia's war in Ukraine, but they face complex political and logistical challenges." I just want to say, I've said it before, Putin has a lot to blame for the escalating prices. The war, it's a tit for tat, and then all of a sudden you get sanctions. Now Putin's saying he's not going to export agriculture unless it's to a friendly nation. You've got the rising fertilizer costs. All of this very much starts from this war. However, food costs were already skyrocketing well before this war started. Food shortages were already hitting everybody well before this war started. I definitely think the Biden admin and the media are like, oh, it's all Putin's fault. It's like, nah, it's your fault too. But, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're prepared for the worst because they're saying the word famine now. It was the French foreign minister said global famine. I think it was the UN Health Food Program said, I don't know if he said famine, but even Biden is saying famine in Europe. Famine is the word.
Oh, boy. Well, I think it's more like famine in Africa, right? The problem being that it's food resources in Europe are like key to providing food in Africa.
But this is the surface layer. You know, Vladimir Putin says the poorest countries are going to be impacted very heavily by this global food shortage. But of course, it's going to impact us very severely. It already is. In Spain, they're already food rationing. In Germany, prices are already up 20 to 50%. So this is the funny thing. You just had a look when I said Spain was doing food rationing. They're doing it at supermarkets. I want you guys to imagine this. Imagine what your life is going to be like when you go to a supermarket and you go to get chicken and there's a sign saying only one chicken item per customer. Could you imagine that? I could, because it happened 2 years ago. We saw all of these food shortages and our supermarkets were doing food rationing. You'd go in and it'd say only one beef item per customer. I went in and I was like, I want to get some boneless chicken wings. They're called wangs or whatever because they can't call them wings. And it was like a big sign says only 2 per customer. So you could get like one thing of nuggets and maybe a thing of breast. That's all they would allow. We're seeing that happening in Europe now. It's happening in Spain. Germany, as I mentioned, prices are skyrocketing. So with the lack of fertilizer, it's not just going to be poor nations that suffer. Oh, they're going to suffer the worst.
Yes.
But I'm very much concerned about what's going to happen here in the U.S. What's going to happen to cities when these people who are entitled, often morbidly obese, how are they going to deal with this? How are they going to, what are they going to do when they can't get the food they want?
Hopefully they'll be looking up on the internet how to lose weight, how to fast, because the first 3 or 4 days of fasting is brutal.
But this is like, this is different. Like, the COVID stuff hit our supply chain. Right, this is Europe's.
No, it's our supply chain. We get a ton of our fertilizer from Russia. Most of our fertilizer comes from Russia, and fertilizer costs for American farmers is up 300%.
That's fair. I didn't realize that was a fertilizer.
And not to mention fuel costs too. But it also means what will the Biden administration do for Europe? Biden's already talked about taking our food and giving it away to other countries. So we are going to be strained on this one. Now the worrying thing is people in big cities. LA is so massively dense. And the people who live in these dense populated areas, they don't make food. You got house after house after house. There's maybe a small garden. But these people aren't going to be able to sustain themselves in these big cities. What are they going to do? Now, I don't think the apocalypse is coming. I don't think it's going to be like come November, you go in the supermarket and there's people punching each other for one can of beans. Maybe at some point in the next few years, depending on how bad things can get. But it's going to be like what the way they're describing it is food costs going up 40% by the end of the year.
I had a dream
with inflation on top.
Last night I had a dream that I saw the owner of the old restaurant that I worked at in LA. I saw her and I was like, "Do you own this restaurant?" She went, "Yeah." And I'll get some food. I sat down to get like a Reuben sandwich and it was $100 in the dream. And I didn't think
crazy dream.
I haven't been thinking about inflation lately, but that just like lightning struck my brain.
Dude, we went out to get breakfast out here and for like 5 people, it was like $100 and something. And we went to a diner. We didn't go to like a crazy place. Prices were nuts.
I mean, prices, you gotta even just go to the grocery store, try and buy a pound of ground beef. It's like $7-8 easy.
There's a little barbecue shack by us. And last year they stopped selling brisket. And the guy said it was because it was too expensive. He was like, there's no point in trying to sell a $20 serving of brisket. No one will buy it. And then I'm on the hook for it. So I just won't buy it at all.
Do you guys think that
you will eat bugs? You will live in the pod.
You think factory farming is a sin against God?
Well, I'm not religious, so we'll start there. So that's a
Seamus question.
I was going to ask Seamus next.
I'm not sure how you're defining factory
I
farming.
asked God-
I believe there are ways that are more or less ethical when it comes to how we treat animals.
I was taking the stink bugs out of my room and throwing them outside, and like they were dying in the freezing. And I asked God, "Am I going to burn in hell for killing these things?" And He said, "You're gonna. If you're going to judge you for anything, it's for factory farming." And it was like all of you. It was the statement of like the human race will be judged harshly for what you're doing to the animals in factory farms. I believe it. If there is a God, that He'd be pissed, or it would be not happy with the disunity and the disorganization of how we've corralled these things, stuck them with antibiotics to overgrow them, and just suck their blood.
But listen. I mean, I will agree with you to a certain extent, just in a basic human moral position that we do bad things in the name of profit to maximize how much food we produce. And now we have very, very cheap food and very, very fat homeless people. So there is definitely some weird disconnect going on with our food economics. At the same time, we need mass production of food to feed people so they can live.
I'm into stem cell food. Have you guys looked?
Well, I don't want to change the subject.
Okay.
Maybe
on the after show.
Let's operate with the assumption that we don't have it
slide.
right now. Should we continue? I mean, and I think, it's not the chicken and beef that are making people fat, right? It's
ho-hos.
the sugar and the carbs.
Yeah,
Twinkies.
corn sugar.
True.
The corn industry.
You know what it
is
was
like,
for me? So Michaela Peterson talks about how just switching to an all-meat diet. It's not so much that the all-meat diet is good for you, but that it's an elimination diet. So when I cut out carbs, I cut out bread too. And then I've been having some food and then testing. It turns out when I eat no gluten, my Whoop recovery rate is through the roof. When I have bread, it drops. So I'm like, that's it, bread's done.
We had that same conversation last night.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you do an all meat diet, yeah, that's good. You're getting your B vitamins, you're getting it, but it's all the stuff that you're cutting out, the sodium benzoate, the crappy preservatives that they don't even put on the label that they call natural flavors, that they get from like a dissected bug or something.
You know what I ate today? Out in the yard, we have chives everywhere. Everywhere. It's amazing. They taste so good. It's nuts. You can pick them right off the ground and eat them. I prefer to wash them, so I don't do that. But literally, we walk outside and just grab a big thing and just tear it off and then chop it up, threw it in some farm fresh ground beef we got from a farm down the road.
nice.
Man, that's good eating. People, I bring this up because when you look at places like LA or New York, what are they going to do when food is harder to come by?
There was a movement to start growing vegetables in the berm area of LA streets. I don't know if you guys saw that. There was a guy pushing for it 4 or 5 years ago.
Like the middle of the streets where they have like the planters.
Yeah, between the sidewalk and the road.
You know why that won't work?
Because people will just take it.
No, because it would fall on the ground, rot, and it would
And
be
then
rotted
bugs
all,
come, yeah,
it would
bugs
be
and rodents.
all over the streets. It would be a disaster.
But if you could upkeep it, like the homeless people, you could give them money. That's a job incentive program to upkeep the gardens and just have
that you can't.
city
there's-
gardens.
Yeah, I mean,
homeless
one of the-
people aren't.
Or anybody really that wanted a job.
The problem is not, that's Schellenberger, right? He's really good on this. The problem with homeless people is not the lack of the home.
I shouldn't even just say homeless
Yeah.
like that. They need or want that. It's anybody that could use a job. That could be a type of job as local farms, road farms, or whatever you want to call them. But they are going to run out of food if they don't.
I don't know. I mean, like most of those sort of like urban gardening type things don't make sense in terms of scale, right? The problem, they just don't understand how big like the farms that actually feed us really are. They're massive. And when you're talking about these small, tiny little urban plots, it's like it's just
exactly. And like the most population dense
it's just a
part of the country.
trivial contribution to the overall food supply.
I like rooftop gardens, but
They're
we need to
cool. They're just not that
Yeah.
meaningful in terms of increasing the food supply of a city.
It could like supplement your groceries, basically.
But if everyone does it, it's a big ask. I know. To grow your own food. It's kind of like duh. Looking back and be like, they didn't used to grow their own.
So
what the heck?
I was reading one article that said people should expect to be spending about $1,000 a month for groceries. What is? Do we know the average spend for a family per month on groceries?
I can look that
I can
up.
look it up.
Because for me, I don't have a good barometer of a high grocery cost. Because when we buy groceries, we buy it for the whole office, which is like 30 people. So we spend a lot restocking everything for everybody. But I'm wondering what the average person is spending per month on
In
groceries.
1990,
according
it
to
was $200 a week.
According to 2020 data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, that works out to $412 per month. Is the
So it's
average
gonna
cost.
more than so. At least one article I was reading was saying expect your bills to your food cost to be about over $1,000.
I read that people should budget an extra $5,200 per year for inflation starting
So
now.
an extra $500 or so bucks for the food
Yeah.
costs. Yep. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, Tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.